Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Misty Weltzien. She's a managing partner at Pacific Advisors, which is a West Coast-based financial services firm, and she also leads the advisor experience for the firm. She has a lot of designations, including CFP and CLU, and she's in the process of writing a book, which we'll talk about during the podcast. I love her energy and her commitment to helping people become financially stable, and I'm excited to have her on the podcast today. Welcome, Misty.
Amy, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
Let's jump in to my questions for you. At Pacific Advisors, you not only work with clients as their financial advisor, you also work with other advisors and oversee the advisor experience for the firm. And I'm really curious to hear how you've seen COVID affect what's been a very traditional come into the office, go out and meet clients industry, financial services. How is work life evolving for financial advisors in this COVID environment?
Yeah. I think if you talk to the bulk of our advisors at our firm, most of us feel like our work-life balance is better than it's ever been. We've always been fortunate that we've had the autonomy to travel and take vacations and go to school events and things like that. But it always came with a loss of productivity, right? Because to your point earlier, we are very elbow to elbow, face to face. And so COVID has really forced us to evolve and purchase technologies and create systems and processes where our office is now anywhere, right? It could be anywhere in the world. And so most of our advisors are very excited. They're having more family dinners than ever before, right? At home. They're not stuck on the 405 commuting back after a meeting. And so family dinners and family playtime. And so most of us are feeling very optimistic. You know, the problem with any innovation is adoption, right? So it's not that these technologies didn't exist before, right, but if the clients don't adopt them and they want a face-to-face meeting, then you're still kind of stuck, right? And now we're finding that clients were also forced into adoption and recognize that they're still getting the great same advice and same service, and they're more open to this way of doing business moving forward in the future. So again, we're very optimistic about it. Yeah, so the other area that it's really going to, I think, change our perspective is on our real estate footprint, right? So historically, we've had very large footprints, very big offices, lots of meeting spaces for clients to come in. And what we're recognizing now is that, you know, while real estate is still important, it's to a much smaller degree. So we're going to be doing a lot more hoteling and instead redirecting money that we were otherwise spending on real estate to other resources, servicing capabilities, events, marketing, things like that. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, and I love the evolution from work in the office to work from home to the phrase that you used, which is work from anywhere. And it's fun to see people realizing that there's a lot more flexibility when, as you said, you can get the clients to adopt the technology so that they're comfortable with it. And that gives us in client service the freedom to work from anywhere to do what we do. I love that the shift is going from managing people to managing the work. And as long as the work product is the quality and in the timeline that it needs to be delivered, then when you do it and where you do it is not as important. And it's fun for me to see sort of that hand's being forced given the environment. But I think, like you said, you're seeing in working with your advisors that the quality of life for most people is improving. That commute can't be the impact of removing that commute from most people's work days, I think is phenomenal. And I can't imagine, even if tomorrow we were to all go back to office work, I think a lot of people would say, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to be on
Yes.
the 405 for an hour and a half each way each day anymore. That's
Yes.
just not the quality of life I want.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, so that's exciting to me. So you and I both have long careers in industries that are traditionally male dominated, you in financial services and me in the insurance industry. And I know that from your position, you have used your voice to make your industry more inclusive for women. Tell me about your experience with that.
Yeah. So financial services only has 22% representation of female advisors, right? 78% male, 22% female. And if you look at leadership, the statistics are even more horrific. Only 9% of women in leadership in financial services. And as I've been on this journey, I started to see why there weren't more women attracted. So some of the processes and tactics and things like that the industry was accustomed to were not conducive to women, particularly mothers, right? So as an example, the firm that I started my career with that I'm no longer with, I started straight out of college. Training was at 7:30 in the morning on Mondays and Fridays. And, whether you were a career starter like me or had a family, it didn't matter. You made training or you didn't get trained, right? So we didn't hire a lot of women because most women at 7:30 are dropping kids off at school, right? So at our firm, we don't start any training before 9 a.m. because we want to make sure that people can, have their parental responsibilities. A lot of the awards trips were golf clubs and suits, right? And I'll drive the golf cart and drink some white wine all day long, but like I don't golf, right? So that would never be attractive to me. So I started recognizing these things and talking about it. First, we made some really big changes in our own firm, but then I started talking about it at conferences and associations and speaking platforms, and got on committees where we talked about ways that we can attract more women. And I'm very excited that we're doing this great work. Our firm, Pacific Advisors, was the first and only financial services company to be awarded the EDGE Award, which is gender equality and professional development. And we were really proud to be the only one in the country, but now we're not the only one in the country. There's multiple firms that have earned this, and I'm so happy about that, right? We want more firms to qualify for this.
Sure.
And, have women in the workforce and diversity and inclusion in total, not just, gender diversity. So,
Right. Yeah, I love that you recognize that, and I love that you are working to change it from the inside, starting with your firm and then helping other firms. And you shared with me that other firms started contacting you and wanting to have you help advise their women, and make changes so that they could be more inclusive. And I've certainly had the same experience with my industry, with the award trips being very golf focused, luxury boxes at sporting events, very alcohol focused. The insurance industry certainly that was a thing, and none of those things are of interest to me. That's not how I do business. And that was really part of the genesis of Align Women and the networking masterminds that I started, was that I felt like I wanted to network differently, build relationships differently, and the other women that I wanted to do business with felt the same way. And it's wonderful that we have the opportunity to build something different, and not play in that sort of traditional sandbox. So I love what you're doing to contribute to that. So
absolutely.
you in your personal journey, you are currently navigating being a partner at your firm and being the mother of two very young children. And you have acknowledged to me that having children felt like a setback in your career track. And in response to that, you really took control of reassessing what your priorities were and changing your filter for what was important to you. And I am very committed to what I call a values-based everything, a values-based communication process, a values-based planning process for both my personal life and my business life. And what you described to me sounds very much like what I do, which is change the filter to figure out what's really important to you, and then only allow things in that are aligned with those values. So tell me about that process for you and how you did that as a mother and as a partner.
Yeah. So very young children, right? You mentioned I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I think one of my proudest professional accomplishments is changing my perspective from setback to accomplishment, right? Like that I can have this amazing career and amazing family life. And so for me, making partner was always in my vision. I knew I wanted to be partner. I absolutely love my firm. I knew I wanted it to be my forever home. And I was on track to become partner when I got pregnant with my first son. I still had that great momentum leading up to the birth, but I, went out on maternity leave a little earlier than anticipated due to some medical complications, and then had the regular maternity. So I was out for 4 months. And when I came back, the inertia was gone, right? Like, how it is in any sort of consulting or service work, like you have this great big snowball momentum and then you're at a standstill. And to get that back, it's a lot of work. And I really grappled with my work responsibilities and the mom guilt, right? Of all the things that you have to do at home. And Amy, I can't tell you how many times I just thought, I can't do this. I'm not thriving in either. So I can't put the baby back. The baby's here. So I should just quit. Like there's no other option, right? Sure. Like one's got to go and it can't be the baby. So I'm just going to quit. Right. And I thought about that a lot. And I meditated about it and I prayed on it. And I said, okay, let me look to find some mentors. So I sought out mentors. I read books. I listened to podcasts of women who were crushing it and doing it. And I was like, okay, wait, there's hope. There are people doing this. Like, it's not an impossibility. And the reality is it just came down to how we spend our time, right? We all have 168 hours in a week. That's it. All of us, you, me, the president, everyone. And so it really made me take a good hard look at where I'm spending my time, what activities am I doing, where am I directing my energy? And so I cut out a lot. Some of those were activities like, scrolling social media and, Netflix binge watching. I used to know all of the best series. I know none of them now.
Right.
And some of them were people, right? I had to really figure out, who was worth my energy, and I doubled down on my really solid relationships, and I cut out a lot of those kind of surface level relationships. And I got more intentional about how much time each activity needed, right? Because how often are we in an hour-long meeting every week that really could be 30 or 40 minutes?
Right.
And it adds up, right?
Yes.
You start to cut that stuff out, and it's 4, 6, 10 hours a week. And if you get 4 hours a week back, it's like 4 weeks a year. So that was what I did. And I'm really, really grateful that I did, because I feel like we don't have to acquiesce to this idea that you can't have it all. You can't be a great mother and a great business person. I think you can, as long as you're more intentional in it. Right. So.
Yeah. And I a way that I put that when I'm working with my coaching clients is you say that you have a time management problem, and what you have is a priority management problem. And what you need to do is step back like you did and really identify what your priorities are and use those as a filter for what you want to let in. And that shifts where you put your time and where you put your energy. And there's a sense of control in that is kind of the polar opposite of the frazzled person who's overcommitted and doesn't really understand why nothing feels satisfying. And I love that you recognize that and did the internal work to take control of that process. And I imagine that having had that experience, you are incredibly capable of doing that when you're working with the advisors in your firm, especially the women who might be in similar positions to you. And you have the ability to share with them that they can accomplish what they want to. They just have to shift their perspective.
That's right. Yeah.
So I asked you, and this is totally related. I asked you one thing you wish more people understood about you. And you said that even though people say you make it look easy, that's feedback that you get a lot from other people, it's not easy. And you're very transparent and authentic about that. And you shared a few things that have been challenges for you. You dropped out of college a few times before you decided what you wanted your path to be. You struggled with some pretty serious sleep issues because You were spending a lot of time thinking about things that had happened that you then had no control of, or things that you were worried about happening in the future. And that's I refer to that as ruminating, and I think that's a habit that a lot of women get into and struggle with. And you, as you've already shared, have put a lot of attention on things like meditation and prayer and breath work and personal development and coaching in order to help you move through those. What's one tool, and that I just covered a lot, obviously, and this could be an hours long conversation, but what's one tool that you use on a daily basis that helps to keep you grounded and keep you on track to keep some of those other challenging habits away?
Mm-hmm. So since I only get to pick one, there's so many, right?
Right.
But since I only get to pick one, I read a book years ago called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And I start every day by Miracle Morning. And Miracle Morning, it's an acronym, SAVERS. It's silence, which is that meditation you talked about, affirmations, visualization. So really reconnecting with my goals and my vision every day, whether it's my long-term goals or like what's in front of me today, what do I want to tackle today. Exercise. I mean, I exercised every day in college and then like let it go when I started my business, because to me, business was more important. Right. And now I'm recognizing that was the worst thing I could have done. And I exercise literally daily now. Reading. So I use Audible, and scribing. So journaling, making sure that I'm set up for success. And through that one routine, like transformations have happened, because at the very beginning of the day, before, your work email starts pinging you left and right and the fires come in, you're setting yourself up for success. And then the only other thing I'll mention is that I think some of it's about mindset. I learned that I have to not sweat the small stuff and not take life too seriously. And trying to remind myself of that makes it really easy when something doesn't go the way I want it to go. I'm like, oh, no one died. It's fine. And it seems like a small thing, but that's a big thing. So we know a lot of people that just get crazy anxiety over everything that doesn't go right. So
you use the same approach I use, which is, and we talked about this in a previous conversation, this isn't brain surgery. I'm not transporting life-saving organs. Like, yes, I want to serve my clients, but yes, I'm probably going to screw something up, and screwing something up is not the end all be all for anybody. So I use the same language for that, which I love. And I love that practice that you described, and we'll be sure that we link the Miracle Morning book in the show notes so that people have access to that. I recently read The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani, and he has a very similar process, which includes, as you mentioned, the visioning and the really emotionally connecting to the thing that you want, and that piece of it is so important. And really, what you describe and what other practices create is the ability to connect to who you are as a human being before you allow all that other stuff to come in, especially in the morning. Our identities are not who we are at work or the crises that are going on in politics or the country. We're connecting with who you are as a human allows you to step forward into those things as opposed to letting those things define you. And I think that's so important. And I can see how that's such a contributor to how you've managed to successfully navigate your career and your momhood and your ability to be an advisor and a mentor to women in your business. So I appreciate you sharing that. So on the topic of books, you are writing a book, which I think is so exciting. Yeah. Tell me what it's about. Tell me what the working title is, because I already know and I love it. And tell me why you wanted to write it.
Yeah. So the title is Box That Bitch. And so to give you a background on the name, I was speaking for a conference and I was talking about the mental gremlins that we all have, that inner voice that's just telling you all the reasons why things won't work. And it was just off the cuff that it came to my mind. And I said something to the effect of, and I've been boxing that bitch for 2 days, like talking about my inner voice, and and the audience just roared in laughter, and everyone after came up to me and was like, oh my God, my inner demon's a bitch too, or whatever, right? And so it really resonated with people. So I was like, okay, if I ever write a book, that's got to be the title. And that was in 2017. So fast forward 3 years later, I'm like finally doing it. I'm finally writing it. I did have a kid in between, so I feel like I had a little bit of an excuse for the delay. But really, the book is just about the things that I've learned with all the stuff you and I have talked about today, right? Like, we have so many things, pulling at us. We're getting pulled in a million different directions. Life is hard. And I think a lot of times our subconscious brain, all the things I've learned about neuroscience, the routines and tactics that we use in our day-to-day lives, they make a difference. And so really it's just a culmination of all the lessons I've learned that have been helpful for me, that I wanted to share with others, to say, like, I'm just a normal human who's a disaster, who has like become less of a disaster by using these techniques. And if it can help one person, it will have been, worth the time. So yeah.
I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited to read it when it comes out. And I think it's going to be brilliant based on the conversations that we've already had. And I love the title.
Thank you.
So where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I am the only Misty Weltzien. I went from a hard Portuguese Italian last name to a hard German last name to pronounce. So I'm the only Misty Weltzien on LinkedIn, and our website, pacificadvisors.com. I can be found there as well. So
wonderful. And we will link that all in the show notes. So thank you so much, Misty, for joining me on the Aligned Women podcast today. It has been an absolute delight to have you and to share you with my audience.
Thank you, Amy, for having me. I've had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see your next podcast.
Wonderful. So look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Aligned Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com, and visit alignedwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Aligned Women podcast.